Hello and welcome back to NoBS. Today we return to talking about CHAZ, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone located in Seattle, Washington. This new free American country within a country has been causing a lot of disturbance and a lot of news stories recently. Basically, what happened, they sort of reacted to this whole chaos starting in the country that sparked from that Minneapolis arrest gone wrong and caused demonstrations to go on throughout our nation. And in addition to that, now these groups are starting to get even more radical and they're taking over parts of and small areas in certain sections of these towns. This one specifically is in Seattle, and they've also attempted to create autonomous zones in both Portland and places in Texas. Now, I'm not sure if those places have been nearly as successful. I know Texas was really locking down hard and doing the right thing and stopping this stuff with law enforcement, but the one in Seattle is still happening. CHAZ is still existing, and a lot has changed, and a lot of hypocritical things have happened. Basically, for starters, as the title of this video suggests, it's kind of become its own version of Idiocracy. Idiocracy is a movie by Mike Judge from the mid-2000s. It's very hilarious. It's a really sharp and witty satire about how terrible our future in America could become if we keep acting so stupid and don't learn from our mistakes. Idiocracy was a movie where basically the premise was this guy falls asleep, wakes up in the future, and everyone's really dumb in the future. Like quality of the education system, and everyone just gets really dumb from watching too much TV. They're all drinking soda and just kind of listening to advertisements and stuff. There's a whole thing about it. There's a lot of different sides to that story, but basically people are saying that's kind of like what's happening in this place. So let's check out this picture. This is a good example. This is CHAZ versus Idiocracy, and you can see the comparisons are pretty strong. You see CHAZ, we've talked about them before, about how they've both had this whole thing where they've put these people in charge. This guy is a rapper turned warlord who's taken over the area. And in Idiocracy, it was similar. They had a president who was a wrestler and ran for president and kind of did similar kind of flashy dressing and did these kinds of crazy events in the government center and stuff like that. And then the next comparison is where it gets really good, because here's the CHAZ garden, and as you can see, they're really having trouble growing plants. It's really sorry garden, and they're trying to be autonomous and all that stuff, but they're failing really hardcore. And this is actually the same story and premise that happened in Idiocracy. As you can see by this quote, it says, "After several hours, Joe finally gave up on logic and reason and simply told the cabinet that he could talk to plants and that they wanted water." So he's the guy, that's the main character, who fell asleep, of course, and just basically couldn't get the people to listen to him. So he had to just make something up and say, hey, I could talk to the plants, they want water. In that story, they were actually watering the plants with this Gatorade. They had a different Gatorade. I think it was called Mondo or something in the show, in the movie, but they were watering their plants with Gatorade. And then the guy wakes up and just realizes, hey, just use water, and he saves the whole country. And this is similar to what's happening in CHAZ. We're going to talk about some other things that are funny there too, because this district has not only become a total joke, but they're also highly hypocritical. That's where we're going next, because in addition to this whole ridiculous setup and just kind of turning into chaos and seeing how dumb people can be, well, they also have done very hypocritical things from the start. Before we get to this video that's on screen right now, let's talk about a few other ones. For example, the first thing the CHAZ people did was build a wall, and that's exactly what they kind of called us all racist for years. They were trying to bash Trump and saying that walls were racist, and they said that walls don't work, but then boom, when they get their first chance to make their own state, they put up a wall too. So it kind of just shows, and the point is, they're not really practicing what they preach. We know liberals are like this. We know that they don't follow through, and they think it's okay when they do it. And the main moral of the story is they actually don't want no walls. They just don't want other people to have walls. Like, it's okay for them to have walls, but other people do it, it's racist. And that's what's going to be happening with all these examples today. We'll finally get to this video on screen in a sec, but we have a few more, because it wasn't just the walls that they stopped. They also kind of stopped immigration in this autonomous zone. Now, granted, it's kind of become a tourist trap now. Like, a lot of tourists are just visiting there for fun, taking a picture, kind of like how these other demonstrations went, where like social media influencers show up, yada, yada, yada. But in addition to that, these people have been kind of starting their own little band of law enforcement in CHAZ, and they don't call it cops, though. They call it whatever, like a free group of patrolman or something. They make up some other name. But the point is, they hated cops so much before, but then they just basically set up their own force. I mean, they don't call it police, but it's essentially the same thing. The first thing they started enforcing was no immigration, stopping people from coming in, guarding those walls. And then the next thing that you see with that is the fact that they're carrying weapons and they're totally cool with the Second Amendment now. Before, the Second Amendment was wrong and they wanted to take away all of our stuff, but now it's okay if they're holding the weapons, if they have them, that's all right. And in addition, they've even gone so far as to use the stop and frisk methods. They use stop and frisk like to stop people they think are suspicious. They kind of pat them down, make sure they don't have anything they don't like. And this is another method that they called racist for years. This is something I know it came up in New York City, probably other cities, and it's just so rich and so funny to see them use the same tactics that they turned against us. It's just proof that they're highly hypocritical and they don't really care about these issues. Like, they act like they're racist, but it just means they don't want other people to do them. They want in charge. Like, for example, they're taking away cop places in this area and in other areas. They're taking away the cops. And it's not because they don't want cops. It's because they want to control all the cops and they want all the cops to be liberals and do what they do. And they just replace them with their own people. And the last example before we get to this is they are benefiting from capitalism now. I talked about how tourists were visiting there and lots of people are kind of coming in. And, you know, the whole thing is they set up these kinds of farmers markets and they're selling stuff to people and selling like tourist stuff. And it's like, okay, so capitalism is cool now. I guess communism is out the window. They're not really true socialists. They still want to make money like the rest of us. And now, with that said, we're going to get back to the whole policing issue there. They're having an issue. They have these guards and people carrying weapons, but it's kind of messed up because this video on screen, it shows, and I actually don't think we could show a lot of the video, just some stills because it gets a little graphic, but basically this guy gets arrested by the kind of guards, the people that are taking charge there. This guy, apparently, this tweet says, "The autonomous zone has a right to reject you." The citizen of CHAZ yells at a street preacher being held down by Antifa. He screams, "I'm a free citizen," while they pry his speaker from his hands. The chokehold him at one point face down like George Floyd. So this is reminiscent of what happened in the initial incident. This is what sparked all of this stuff 2 weeks ago. It happened in Minneapolis. An arrest went wrong, a terrible tragedy. No one thinks George Floyd should have died, but that's what happened. It's very sad. And the problem here is these guys are using the same tactics that they said wasn't supposed to be used there. They're pinning the guy down. They even get to a point where they pin him down on his face, I believe. I don't know if that's here. I think there's another video, but basically they're doing the same thing and they're even starting to realize it because there was someone in the crowd that started trying to save this preacher. Now, another point to point out is the fact that they hate preachers, they hate religion, they hate laws and rules, and they hate morality. They hate anyone that's not just this crazy, godless kind of criminal. They want radicals. They want people to be more crazy and not follow authority. So here's more of that incident. This video has 3 million views. Again, I'm trying to just give you some glimpses. There he's getting pinned down on his face, like just very reminiscent of that very sad event in Minneapolis. And it just goes to show that these guys are not really against these things like they claim. They just don't like them in certain situations. And it's just very hypocritical, very sad. And it's showing their true colors. And I think this kind of thing, they probably thought this was a good idea in the beginning, but it's spiraling out of control for sure. We can see lots of problems in the area. We can see lots of problems for the greater image of these liberals and leftists. This is all Antifa, BLM, SJW stuff. Like, this is going to look really bad for them and good for us. This is the kind of thing that's helping Trump get reelected. People are seeing this lawlessness. This is a liberal-led city, liberal state. It's out of control. They're using these methods against people, and it's really messed up. This person has a good comment saying, "Policing isn't as easy as they thought." And then someone says, "I love this rendition of Idiocracy playing out, so much more realistic. This is the picture we went over first. The autonomous zone has a right to reject you." Well, if that ain't the most xenophobic thing I've read all day. They have cops too. Yeah, so more hypocrisy here. They're allowed to reject you, like they're allowed to kick people out, which is basically like, deporting them, and that's like an anti-immigration sentiment. So we're just going to show this is the kind of thing. It's proving them wrong. It's proving like a lot of things wrong. Like it's proving a lot of their arguments were terrible. The anti-wall argument was awful because they're building walls. They're living behind walls. The anti-immigration thing didn't work because now they realize they want to control who comes in and out of their area. Other things like weapons, Second Amendment, kind of ruling and kind of having this group of police officers that they don't call police officers. They're just calling them a different name. It's not any different. You have to have these groups of people to enforce the law of the land and keep peace. And that's what's going on there. And so that's the thing. It's like they're exposing themselves. They're showing us that none of their arguments work in the real world. They're under control. And it's also showing that, Democratic-led places are bad. This is bad news. This is why it's happening. It's in Seattle. The mayor is letting it happen. She visited this area and acted like it was all fine and dandy. And then next, the state isn't moving in. Nothing's going on. Trump threatened to try and help out too, but he's also got to stand back because the minute he does something, they're going to snap on him. CNN already tried to blame it on him and all this other stuff. So, it's a very tricky situation, but the longer it goes on and the more embarrassing it gets, the worse the left is going to look. That about wraps things up. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. Also hit that like button to help this video get shared. And until next time, you have a great day. Hey guys, I wanted to take a quick moment to tell you about our new second channel. NoBS News has been really ramping up recently. We've got over 10,000 subscribers now, and it's growing each and every day. This is a new extra channel where I can give you guys more content, which includes extra videos, sometimes streams, sometimes other fun things too, clip shows, whatever you like. NoBS News is going to have it there for you. So make sure you check it out by either searching NoBS News on YouTube or clicking the link below this video. Thanks for your time. Have a good one.